So today, inshallah, in this brief reminder, I'm going to share with you a few things that, especially when it comes to our children, when they get married, and if anyone is here not married, inshallah, these are a few things you have to keep in mind that are considered as sort of red flags before you get married. The very first thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has always reminded us is that there are two things that should be at the highest level when you are searching for another person, and that is religion, deen, and akhlaq. There is no compromise in these matters at all. And by the way, this is something that we find in many ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, deen and khuluq. And the reason why deen and khuluq is because there are things that you can look at beyond deen and khuluq. There's nothing wrong with that. Like when the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Fadfar bidat deen." Taribat yadak, when the Prophet ﷺ says that a woman is married for 4 reasons, and then he says give preference to religion over all the other things. It's not that the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that don't look at the other things. The Prophet ﷺ is saying give preference to religion over everything else. So you have to give preference to looks. You have to give preference to how they are, how are you appealing to them or not? Or are they appealing to you or not? Because often what happens is that if you overlook some of the other things that are important, then this is why there is infidelity in many marriages. So that is why, once again, deen and khuluq are 2 things you have to look at in all circumstances. And by the way, deen is not the superficial deen that we see today. A person is coming to the masjid, khalas, they are religious. No, that's not religion only. Religion is a whole spectrum. Religion is a spectrum. One aspect of religion does not mean that a person is religious. Or often if they are a teacher, or if they read Quran and so forth, oh, I saw this person at the masjid, or I saw this person reading Quran. It does not matter that it doesn't mean that they are religious. So that is why religion is a spectrum. You have to look at many different things. And not only that, but you have to look at the akhlaq of a Muslim. If they have akhlaq, then inshallah, this is something that is a good matter. Of course, you have to look at other things that are also important factors within a marriage. But deen and akhlaq are the 2 most important things we have to look at when it comes to the subject and the topic of marriage. Number 2, I would say which is very, very important, is see how they treat their parents. SubhanAllah, one day I went to go conduct a marriage and a nikah. And right after the nikah was over, after I had just conducted the aqdul nikah and officiated the marriage, the groom was sitting over there and he said something very disrespectful to his mother. He said something very disrespectful to his mother. And as a person, I could not handle it. Wallah, I could not handle it. That he's disrespecting his mother on the day of his nikah. His bride is coming. She has not come yet. They're about to bring the bride later on. I just conducted the Abdul Nikah and he's being so disrespectful to his mother. Right before the bride came, I sat down with that young man and I told him, I said, here you are disrespecting your mother on probably the most happiest day of your life. How are you going to treat your wife? So that is why it is very important that if you really want to gauge a person's akhlaq, look at how they treat their parents. It really highlights who they are truly as a person, how they talk to their mother, how they talk to their father, and it goes for both. It goes for the man and for the woman. If there is an atmosphere, an environment within the house where children have no respect for the parents, then they're never going to have respect for anyone else. If the parents are the ones who have been taking care of them for all their lives, and they cannot respect them, there's no way they're going to show respect to their spouse. Number 3, often people tell me that what I see on paper or what I see in front of me might be an issue, but inshallah, down the road, they will change. And let me make this one thing very clear. Do not ever have anyone in your family get married based on potential changes. It does not work. What you see in front of you is what you will get even after marriage. In fact, you might even get it a little worse. Because the very first time 2 people meet, they always put on a very pleasant persona, a very pleasant kind of personality. They always show you the good side of their own. But then later on, when you begin to live with them, then they may show you some negative aspects also. So that is why it is very important that if a person says, "Oh, they will inshallah change," it does not ever work. If they promise you a change, you still don't go on that. You just don't go on those kind of things. I remember I had a sister who came to my office a long time ago. She came to me for premarital counseling. I went through the whole my own personal process of premarital counseling. Wallahi, at the end, I told her, I said, sister, my honest, humble opinion to you is don't get married. You should not get married to this man. It's not, you both are two entirely different people. Don't. And she said, no, don't worry, he will change. That was her words. 3 months later, she was in my office for a divorce. That is why it is very important that when it comes to our kids and when they say, oh, they will change, no one changes. Most of the time, no one changes. You know, there's a saying in Urdu, okay, I'll translate it also, which is, "Pahad apni jagah se hil sakta hai, lekin aadmi nahi badalta hai." Which means that a mountain can move. It is more possible that a mountain can move from its place, but usually people don't change their own behaviors. So that is why when you talk about potential changes, don't go on potential changes. What you see, is what you're going to get. Number 3, which is a very important red flag in many cases, is that if the man or the woman is willing to commit haram before the marriage or before the aqdun nikah, then usually that is a red flag that they may do something afterwards. If, once again, I said earlier, you're trying to always put on your best personality, your best, character forward when you're meeting someone new. And in that, if you're showing them that you have absolutely no regards for deen and you're willing to commit haram even before the aqdun nikah is taking place, then usually the case is that they will also push each other to commit haram even afterwards. Now, I've seen this happening many times. If the woman is religious, she is religious in nature, often the kids still may become or they may not become religious. It usually goes on the father. If the father is religious, he sets the tone for the entire family. I've seen many cases where the mother is very religious, but the father is not religious, and that is why this has an effect on the kids. And I've seen also the opposite situation where the mother is not so close to deen, but the father is very close to deen, and subhanAllah, you will see the kids on deen. There's a reason why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talked about the religion of a man, although today it's part of our deen, that when it comes to the marriage between a Muslim and a non-Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given permission for a Muslim man to get married to a Kitabi woman. By the way, this is not, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given permission, it's not a recommendation. I had a young brother who came to my office one time. He says, I can get married. I told him, I said, you can get married, but it's not the recommendation of Allah or His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The fact that Allah has given permission, many people think that this is the recommendation. When it comes to marriage, we always have to teach our children that it's about the upcoming generation. It's not just about them and their satisfaction and their human needs and so forth. It's about the upcoming generation, and you have to look after them. So that is why, if the father is on deen, inshaAllah, if the man is on deen, he can teach the woman, and they will set the tone for the entire family. So that is why you have to also look prior to marriage, that if they're willing to commit haram, then they will not have a lot of regards for religion after marriage. 2 more things, and then inshallah we'll finish. Number 5 is, if the person is considered as a people pleaser, meaning that they always are obsessed about pleasing everyone. Yes. Anyone ask them a question? Yes. Then usually I would say that do not ever, especially for the daughters, do not ever give your daughter to that kind of person. Because if they cannot say no to anyone in life, then they will never ever stand up for your daughter either. They will become a doormat for others. You need to, this is why I keep on talking, and especially when I talk to young men, I always teach them, and especially when it comes to our young men, they feel the need to please everyone. And I teach our young men, you don't need to please everyone. Learn how to sometimes say no. In fact, many times women find that very appealing, that where a man is a man, where he can put his foot down when he needs to put his foot down, and he say yes when he needs to say yes. But a person who's a doormat, a person who says yes in every single situation, a lot of times is not appealing within others. So that is why always learn, we have to teach our young men that do not ever feel the need that I have to say yes and become a people pleaser. I have to always stick to my principles of life. And the last thing I would say is that before we have our kids getting married, always one thing that you have to look at when it comes to the potential spouse is, last thing is, what is the type of company that they keep? SubhanAllah, I've done marriage counseling and marriage, when I do premarital counseling, one thing I usually often ask is, would you be okay? Like, what is your current situation? Like, what is your current company like? And they would say that where sometimes the man or the woman, they have a very open kind of relationship. they're open with everyone and so forth, and that usually can have an impact after your marriage. So imagine one person is, for example, the woman is a woman who is very open in her relationship. Okay, while she went to school and while she went to college and so forth, she has a very open relationship with men and women and so forth. And the husband does not like that. Usually that can become a very serious problem after marriage. That is why you have to always look at the type of company that they keep. And usually in my premarital counseling that I conduct, I always ask these kind of questions, that what kind of company do you keep right now? And I always ask the other one, that would you be okay if they kept that kind of company? So, because it's something very important. There are times, like, for example, when there's a doctor, a woman is about to get married to a doctor. I had this woman who came to me and she said that my husband talks to many other women. Now, usually if you say this one sentence, you would say, like, what's wrong with the man? But then I asked her that what kind of a profession does he have? And she said that he's a doctor. I'm like, well, you knew from before that he was a doctor. He's going to interact with many women and so forth. He has to talk to a lot of other women. He has to interact, and, he has nurses to talk to and so forth. He's bound to talk to them. Is that the problem? And she says, yes, I don't want him to talk to any other woman besides me. She's that special, mashallah. And what happened was I had to tell her that, did you know before you got married that he's a doctor? And she said, yes, I knew. I'm like, well, that's your choice. You knew that he's a doctor. There's no doctor in America who says, you know what, I'm not going to talk to any women. You have so many women in the workplace, in the workforce and so forth. You have to talk to them as long as he's keeping and maintaining his deen and so forth in terms of his interaction with the others and so forth. He's keeping it kosher. He's keeping it halal and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. You knew that prior to getting married. Now you cannot bring this up after you get married. Otherwise, you should have never got married to this man to begin with. So that is why it's very important that we always understand what kind of company they keep or they are keeping prior to marriage. So these are just 6 things. Once again, religion and akhlaq. Number 2 is how they treat their parents. Number 3 is potentially they will change. Number 4 is committing haram prior to marriage. Number 5 is being a people pleaser. And number 5 is what kind of company do they keep. These are just few things, inshallah. I just wanted to share with you all, inshallah.
My beloved brothers and sisters, many of us, we want to get married. We want to have a happy family, happy children, and happy spouse. And there's nothing wrong in it. When you get married to someone, it's a form of ibadah. And when you buy something for your family, when you feed them, it's considered charity. Sadaqah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy when you are treating your family members in a positive way, in a good way, when you are showing your good character and conduct towards them. And prior to getting married, remember one thing. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to look after these 2 things. These are the 2 priorities, Deen and khuluq, the religion and the best character and conduct. Give the religion the number 1 priority, number 1 preference. And always try to see if your potential spouse is good to their parents, is nice to them, how they treat their parents. Are they good to their parents? If they are good to them, then it's something beautiful. Then it's a probability that they might treat you well too. And don't marry someone who doesn't respect the elders, doesn't respect the parents, and they are always a people pleaser, and they are going to haram, doing all sorts of bad things. Don't think that you will marry someone and change them. It doesn't usually happen like that. Before marrying, think about it. Try to marry the religious, honest, and the one who is earning halal income, and the person who is having good company. Don't marry someone who is having bad companies, the one who goes to clubbing, then the one who is womanizer, and the one who does all sorts of drugs, and have all the useless friends. Don't marry them. If you do so, then there might be problems later in your life. May Allah protect everyone. Try to marry someone who is honest, upright, and having good friends, and good companies, righteous friends around. Because these people, they are usually the positive people, the good people. They have good character and conduct, and they will treat you well. May Allah give us good spouse. May Allah forgive our shortcomings. May Allah give us the ability to be the best spouse. And may Allah grant us Jannatul Fardawsalah.